This week on Dolton News Now.
Illinois is breaking records for early voting and mail-in ballots. In an in-depth Voting 101 interview, Village Clerk Mary Kay Dugan explains where and how to vote early for the 2020 election.
Hello everyone, I'm Giovanni Nixon. Welcome back to Dolton News Now, a weekly news program that highlights what's happening throughout the village to keep you informed and engaged. We are only 8 days away from the U.S. presidential election. Roughly 31 million Americans have already voted. Illinois is breaking records for early voting and mail-in ballots. Today we have with us Village Clerk Mary Kay Dugan. We are socially distanced. We are 6 feet apart from one another. And she is going to discuss the ins and outs of how to vote, where to vote, and what you can do to make sure that your vote counts. Village Clerk Dugan, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so if you could just give us a little insight to what your role is here as Village Clerk, because many residents may not really know.
And I wouldn't blame them. Largely the village clerk's duties here in Dolton are responsive to the needs of all the other departments. Officially, the village clerk is the keeper of the records, so it's my job, in a sense, to have the records and find the records and supply the records. That's job number one. Everything else, other than, of course, and I always give short shrift to the board meetings. The village clerk records the meetings and is responsible for drafting the minutes that are required by statute to be prepared for each and every public gathering. And of course, maintain the ordinances that are passed by the board at each and every, it seems, board meeting. After that, it's whatever department needs me.
Okay, just enough to keep your plate full, right?
More than full.
All right, so of course we are on the heels of the U.S. presidential election.
Yes, indeed.
And we just want to discuss, why is voting so important?
Oh, I think we've all been privy to a lot of discussions these days in the media and among ourselves as to why it's important. I heard more than once in recent weeks. I'm a bit of a news junkie, so I am reminded, and don't have to be reminded, of it. Many pundits are talking about this presidential election as the most important election ever, possibly, but certainly, and I'm old enough to remember some very contentious times politically and socially, but I would agree that this is right up there.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most significant elections, definitely within our, modern day times. And we know that the state of Illinois is breaking records in terms of early voting and mail-in ballots. We have so many residents that want to vote early, but may not really know the process. Can you just explain some of the process of the early voting?
Well, we are getting down to it. So early voting is open now as of the 19th, very close in the usual early voting locations in Dolton. Calumet City Public Library has been a long time go-to for residents, and now Thornton Township Hall is offering early voting. Those are the two that are closest to Dolton. We don't have any in Dolton per se, but they are, especially with the township, it's right on our southern border there. Any voter, those of us who work maybe not close to home, can locate another early voting location in suburban Cook County. Anybody that lives in Dolton can vote anywhere in suburban Cook County. Where you can cross the line is into the city of Chicago at a local early voting place. Other than, of course, the Cook County Clerk's office downtown. But if you live in Dolton, then you can go online or call me, and we can find a convenient location anywhere in suburban Cook County. But the two closest are the Calumet City Library and Thornton Township Hall.
Right in South Holland, that's close. And as Clerk Dugan mentioned, we do have a full list on our Village of Dolton website that outlines the locations closest to Dolton that she referenced. And then we also have a link to the Cook County Clerk's office as well, in case you do need to look for other locations to do early voting. And I know this year has been really different. We're in the midst of a pandemic, right? Which means the mail-in ballot, there's been so many more voters that have voted by way of the mail-in ballot. And that process, can you explain that process as well?
It's been a long time since I cast a mail-in ballot. It was back in the absentee days when I was briefly working out of state and before that in college. But this year, for the first time, I applied to vote by mail and found the process I was a bit concerned, but everything was working the way it's supposed to work, except for the part where I have to complete the ballot and turn it in, which job A, or part 1A, I finally went through my ballot yesterday. And actually, I have to say, I really enjoyed having the luxury of time to go through. I mean, I certainly know who I was going to vote for at the top of the ballot, but as per usual, in even number of years, we see a whole lot of other offices that are on, and the usual pages and pages of judges, which is a particular interest and of importance to me because as a practicing attorney for many years, I know how much a difference it makes, and it tends to get the least attention from all of us because we've got way too many other things to think about.
Yeah, that's a good note for residents, and now is a time too just to do more research, do more reading, be thorough, so that when you make your vote, you know who you're voting for, and it's someone that represents what you would like to see in that office.
And we've been told that forever, and it's always, well, who has the time? Even if you have the interest, like I did. I have said and announced a couple of times, I think, and passed along, that residents who have internet access can go to a website called voteforjudges.org if they're so inclined. But it's real easy because it's basically they score each of the judges that are up for retention or the new judges that are up for election by all the different bar associations. And as it turns out, most of them get pretty high scores. I guess lawyers are pretty kind to other lawyers, at least out of the courtroom. So most have very high scores, but I saw last night there are a few out of many that you don't want to go there. You don't want to be responsible for that person getting in. It's really hard to get out once you're in, but you don't want to be part of it. So it's voteforjudges.org.
That's good. And I'll be sure we add that to the Village of Dolton website too as another link that residents can use just to click on and have quick and easy access to do that research.
It's a lot faster than back in the day when the policy wonks like me would go to this newspaper and that bar association and that bar association and go into the polling place with my list, and all the people that were in line behind me would get very aggravated.
Right. The luxury now is that, of course, we have technology. Things are more efficient at our fingertips. We have to use the resources. That's the key.
And the resources are way better. So I just not only suggest but ask people at least to check it out because judges make life and death decisions, literally sometimes, but certainly life-affecting decisions.
Okay, and if someone is watching and they haven't voted yet, maybe don't want to go to the polls,
right? Can
they still do the mail-in ballot, and if so, what's the deadline on that?
To submit an application, and in Illinois you have to apply, which is true in most states. You have to apply to the Cook County Clerk, which is pretty easy to do. If you don't have internet access, we have paper applications here at the Village Hall. The trick is to get them in way soon now. But the deadline the county has set is if it's postmarked at the 29th, which is right up against it.
Oh, okay.
They're still going to be counting after the election, but I would not suggest waiting that long, or certainly not doing it by mail. I strongly suggest folks who can get to an internet or have a family member that can get them to the internet. It takes about 3-4, not even, a few minutes at the Cook County Clerk's website. In fact, with the link to the website, it's the first thing that pops up when you get there. And in fact, you have to work to get out of it. I think they're telling us something. So all a person would need to do it online is have ready their name and address, of course, and of course be sure that they're registered. But that being done, just the last 4 digits of their Social Security number or their ID, their driver's license or their state ID. It took me, and I'm not all that fast some days, it took me a couple minutes from start to finish.
Okay, all right, so it's a swift, easy process.
A lot easier than filling it out, taking the mail in, or you basically have to mail it downtown, so I don't recommend it at this time. So,
all right, and I know that, of course, the phones ring at Village Hall all the time. Are there any specific concerns or questions that you've been receiving from residents regarding the entire process that we could possibly answer today?
Folks are pretty on top of it. I'm pleased. We do get a lot of calls, but they started coming in early, I'd say weeks ago, and a lot of the calls I got up until recently were, well, I mailed in my application as soon as it was available, weeks ago in August, and I still hadn't gotten my ballot. And that's one, and then it morphed into, my neighbor got hers, but I didn't get mine. Is there something wrong? Now, the advantage to requesting it online is that they have a real-time tracker that you can access to see where in the process your application and your ballot is on any given day, like if you
like
check
Amazon,
FedEx,
right?
Any of those, which is pretty cool. I was like, wow, Cook County, 21st century, good job. So I was a little concerned, although I had heard that they were going to release not all the ballots, but they were accumulating the applications over a period of weeks, but they were not mailing them until a certain date, which I believe was the end of September.
Okay.
So if residents who had sent theirs in weeks before were understandably growing concerned, but the counties basically then started releasing them in waves. So
okay, and not all at the same time.
Maybe they're doing it now, but in the beginning they held on to everybody's application and then just sent out a wave. And I was in that wave, so I was happy to get mine. I'm thinking for those who are wondering why they applied at the same time as their neighbor.
I've heard that. I've heard people mention. I think there was a resident recently that said, I think she applied maybe the same day as another family member.
Yes, we got
and one person received and the other didn't. So go ahead.
I had a call. There were 6 voters in the house, and the caller had mailed all the applications at the same time at the post office, and 2 of the voters had received them, the other 4 hadn't. And other than, people mess up sometimes, but I think the county's doing a pretty good job from my observations so far.
Okay.
God help us. That there may have been a registration issue.
Okay.
That required some time to double check that this person was in fact registered.
Okay.
So that is my take on that. And folks who have called, I give them the website. Well, not the website. There's an email to the county and also a telephone number to that particular department. And their turnaround has been pretty fast in responding. So anybody has a question, there is a specific vote-by-mail department at the county that I can track.
Those are good resources. Because like I said, especially now with the pandemic, and then when you send something off in the mail, of course, we love the U.S. postal system, but there's so many things, like you said, in the media that have caused members of the community to be concerned and maybe question whether or not their ballot is actually going to make it there.
Well, I think the news accounts a few months ago about reductions in service in the post office really concerned folks. And that's why I think the county saw a lot of mail-in ballots very, very early. So, and of course the online application. But I think it's not that. It's not a question of the post office not delivering or losing. It's more likely an issue of verifying registration, so some may take a little bit longer than others. Okay. But when in doubt at this stage of the game, contact the county.
Okay. And have you heard any feedback from the early voting locations, like the South Holland, in terms of the wait times or how long?
I haven't. I've asked people to call me and let me know if it's how it's doing. But I haven't heard anything bad.
Okay, so that's good.
So I'm pretty sure if they were waiting in line for 3 hours or something, so somebody would have taken a moment in line to let me know that.
Right.
The other thing, and you may have anticipated this too, at the early voting locations, they have drop boxes now for the mail-in ballots. So if you don't trust the post office or you don't think we have enough time, you can go to the early voting location with your sealed envelope, the ballot completed in it, and drop it in the county drop box. They are secure, they're monitored by county officials, and the county officials take them down to the main HQ headquarters every day.
Okay.
So, that was my plan this week, to get over there and check out the line too.
To see.
So I can report back. Might be a little too late. But,
well, that's okay. You've given us so much other great information.
I expect there are lines.
Yeah.
It's particularly the first couple of days, of course, but I expect there are going to be lines. To that point, they do have extended hours more beyond what we've used to seeing in the past. So it's at both locations, at all the suburban locations, it's 7 days a week now.
Right, I saw that.
And
is it going to 7 p.m.?
7 p.m. Monday through Friday, opens at 8:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. and on Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5.
Right, so there's a huge window of time to make sure you get out there and vote and make your vote count.
As somebody that hates to wait in line, I'm going for the drop box. But
I think we're accustomed to that. You know, we like things fast. We don't want to wait.
Used
But
to
this
be.
is worth it.
Used to be accustomed to that, for sure.
But it's really worth it now. Thank you so much, Clerk Dugan, for being here to share insights on early voting, the mail-in ballot, the drop box option, how to research judges that are also going to be on the ballot that oftentimes
My
the
pet
community doesn't know
peeve.
much about.
Indeed, and there's so many of them that, you know, people cannot be faulted for not voting at all, which I've seen from afar, of course, when I've gone into the polling place. You could not possibly have voted for those judges in that period of time. Or people just vote yes because it's a bit of its own separate system. You've got judges that won in the primary earlier this year. They're now up for election, many of whom are unopposed. Does it make a difference? Not now, maybe, but then you have judges that are sitting judges who are up for what's called retention, which means you vote them, should this person be retained? It actually says that as a judge, yes or no, which seems way harsh to me, but there are a few I understand that might not be deserving of it, and that's what people need to pay attention to, and that's why vote for judges is important. The folks that I do caution against are the ones that go, sure, yes.
Right. Because then you're just marking a ballot and not
For
really
the most part,
knowing.
honestly, it doesn't matter because a lot of them are unopposed, and it takes a lot for a judge not to meet the threshold for retention. So, I think it's a fair argument. What does my vote matter here? Only if enough people are paying attention.
Right.
And it's not enough people pay attention to the judges, but also I completely agree that we have other very important considerations at stake in this election.
It's a full ballot, right?
Starts at the top,
Starts
very,
at the
very
top, but it works all the way.
Works its way down through our state rep, through some county offices. Our state's attorney is up this year, and then onward judges, which
Right.
is about 3/4 of the ballot.
And the state reps, more people you typically know, typically know their state reps and have a little more insight to those positions that they vote for.
Hopefully, I think we're also focused on the presidential election, and people that are so focused on making sure that they vote. I think the rest of the down ballot. Oh, I forgot one of our senators, Senator Durbin, is up as well. So there are other spots on the ballot that in my thing, not surprisingly, is the more local it gets, sometimes the more immediate it gets to the people, to the residents.
Just having an impact on our community, especially here.
Yeah. But we're all focused on the presidential, so I guess we can be forgiven, but just a reminder to folks.
And that's a good reminder. So you heard it here first from our village clerk, Mary Kay Dugan. Stay informed. Make sure you vote either by using the drop box, the mail-in ballot, or on just going to the early voting locations. The closest, as you mentioned, are Cal City and South Holland. Do the research to know who you're voting for, to make sure your vote counts. That's it for this week's. Oh, we have one more thing. We don't want to leave anything out. Go ahead.
And last but not least, if you vote on Election Day, November 3rd, you do not go to the early voting locations. Those will be closed. You have to go to your regular polling place, and that's another question that we get from time to time. Is it still the same place, or I'm a new voter, where do I go? That is all up on the county website. They have a Your Voter Information tool that can, enter in your name and address, and it'll pop up where you can vote on Election Day. But on Election Day, for those hardy souls that have waited that long, and I know they're out there, it's at their assigned polling place.
Okay. And if you need more help or if you have questions, Clerk Dugan is an invaluable resource here. Also visit our Village of Dolton website, where we do have the link to the Cook County Clerk's website to have more information and resources, and we will add the link at voteforjudges.org.
Thank you.
So that you can research the judges that are also on your ballot. That's it for this week's edition of Dolton News Now, your local news source. Be sure to watch us every Monday as we share interviews, information, and live coverage to keep you informed and engaged. Please take a moment to share, like, and subscribe to all the Village of Dolton communication platforms. We'll see you next week.